There's a number of meeting minutes that we need to, for lack of a better word, clean up and get posted on the website, but some of them are in arrears, and I think holding them for another couple of weeks is the appropriate thing to do, in particular, given what's in front of us. The next item, number 4, I'd like to take out of order and have that later on in the meeting, so that we can dedicate most of this evening to next steps regarding the FY26 budget, which is number 5. And number 6, I'd like your permission to converse back to the Charter Review Committee. I've been in contact with that committee, and in particular its chair, about having a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. Hopes was to have it a week ago, and at the very minimum have it sometime in May, but I think I'd like to get back to them and say the same thing regarding the meeting minutes. Would you beg our indulgence and let us tend to that, and we'll get in front of you and you in front of us as soon as possible. Yeah. So that essentially would leave us with the FY26 next steps on the budgets, and we do have some year-end transfers, which, if I'm not mistaken, Heather, are time sensitive, so that we should really dedicate some time, and I'll watch the clock accordingly to make sure that we dispense with those. So as a little bit of a tee-up of the discussion this evening regarding the budget. What I think is going to be in front of us for, and don't hold me to this, but for the next couple of hours and the next couple of weeks and the next couple of meetings is not going to be fun for any of us. A lot of us around the room have dealt with budget deficits before, but speaking for myself, I've never dealt with one of this particular magnitude of $1,130,000, pardon the slight rounding. So what we're going to have to do is to have some hard discussions, ask some hard questions, make some tough decisions, of which there's going to be plenty for everybody to dislike, plenty for people to think that we did too much, plenty for people to think that we didn't do enough. But there's no perfect way to go about this. It's going to hurt. That's a big number for us to overcome. I don't think there's a perfect way or a perfect solution to go through it. But what we have had some success on the Finance Committee of doing is working from a single page and then going off into some ancillary or peripheral information and bringing it back to that centerpiece page again, to find out where we are in terms of the budget deficit is now $500,000 less, $300,000 less, $200,000 less. So I've led with my chin and prepared that the single page. And just give me one more minute, Heather. It's if you like it, great. If you hate it, I own it. If I were to point the needle, I think there'd be a little leaning toward not loving it per se. But a lot of it has to do with what I've heard, what some of you have shared with me. Put it all on one page. There's about 14 items. It's not that simple, because one item could basically take an hour to discuss, and we may have to adjourn and come back next week and bring the answers and get further along on it. They're not listed in any order of priority. Frankly, they are listed as they came to mind, or as some of you shared a comment or an email with me, I added it and I may have reshuffled it, so I don't want anybody to read into a personal agenda that I have, because I have none. But I also thought that writing by committee, balancing the budget by committee, which we need to do incidentally, but if you get my point, from a blank sheet of paper, and just have a roundtable of discussion, couldn't be, or likely wouldn't be, as effective as something of this nature. So I, not asking you to like it, I'm just letting you know what I decided to use as our starting point. There are members from the public here. There are members from the select board here. I would hope that we could engage with all of you at the appropriate time, but I would hope you would respect and recognize that we want to get through our business as well, and I'll pick the appropriate time. It doesn't necessarily mean it would be left entirely to the end, but if you'll just allow my judgment to intervene in terms of when we recognize you and when we ask you to defer your comments a little bit later. So with that, Heather, here's the one page that I'm asking you to put up. I'm going to ask you if you'll allow me to walk you through it, so that we don't end up talking about number 1 and everybody's focus is on number 12. I want you to know that maybe it's coming. But there is the other side of the budget, which was the forbidden fruit for a long time, is the revenue side. But I think this Finance Committee, and in particular working with the town accountant and town administrator, we've looked very carefully at the revenue side, and that might be a first step for us to take a look. We like to be conservative, but we need to ask the question whether or not we've been ultra-conservative, and maybe there's a little bit of room to wiggle there. We have new growth to talk about. I have some things to share with you regarding Wachusett Regional School Assessment, suggesting, and if you can keep in mind, items 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think should ultimately be taken by the town administrator back to the departments to help, have them help us determine where they think they can land and what they can live with. But one of the suggestions is pausing any unfilled positions right now. Doesn't mean that everybody in the room needs to agree with it, but it's what I'm leading with my chin and putting on the table. There were a number of departments that were out of guidance. Some would argue that they're out of guidance, and others would argue that there was unnecessary being out of guidance. So I'm not passing judgment as to whether or not that should carte blanche be rescinded or reduced. I'm just saying it should be talked about. And there were 3 principals amongst those: police, fire, EMS, DPW, which is almost always the case all the time because they're 3 big departments. I didn't delineate the 10 other departments, but there are 10 others that combined to be $38,000 out of compliance, suggesting, and again, I own it. Doesn't mean that everybody needs to like it or agree with it, but I had to start somewhere. That all non-personnel costs, including purchased services or any other things that are non-personnel, be cut back by 5% for all small departments, and small is in quotes, for others other than me to determine what is a small department. Do the same thing at the 10% level for larger departments. that we eliminate all in the budgets that exist now, all travel, meetings, conferences, stipends paid to boards, commissions, committees. We've done that previously, but there are some that are lingering, and there are some that are required by Mass General Law that we can't touch. There may be others that I didn't think of, and I wasn't intending to go down a complete budget worksheet to list all of them, so the other obviously speaks for itself. I think there's a reason to and need to revisit some repurposing of funds. There's lots of reasons why they can be repurposed, but they can't land to the immediate help of the budget. That's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure that we are exhausting the possibility that they could be of some help to the budget. I had heard the other day that there may be some lingering tax title or uncollected taxes that are out there, and just want to make sure, and could very well be that it is absolutely the case that we're vigorously collecting them, but I would want to make sure that we're told that as opposed to us thinking that or thinking otherwise. It might be an opportunity to take a look at employee health insurance benefits that are paid. A lot of discussion in particular at the Capital Improvement Planning Committee about maybe getting creative in terms of accessing and using Chapter 90 Mass Department of Transportation funds. Maybe they can help with things that are currently in the budget, like guardrails and line painting and small equipment. Maybe, maybe not, but we're talking about. I know it's a hot topic, number 10, and the theory is that we've talked about it ad nauseum, but I don't know that we've fully exhausted what we can talk about there. And there are budgets that are associated with the Anna Maria contracts that run for 5 years, from 21 until June 30th, 26, but there are annual budgets that are prepared, and I think there's reason to, and I have an appetite for taking a look at those. We've talked a lot about selling 10 West, and mostly about why we can't do it. I think one of the principal reasons is I think there's a connection with the septic system, but there was also reason that you needed 10 West in the event that you were going to, or the town was going to vote to expand Town Hall. I frankly don't see the expansion of Town Hall in any of our immediate futures. I think consideration should be given, because it would be an influx of cash, of considering what refinancing possibilities might exist with the new fire truck that we took delivery of in the fall of 2024. One of the members here made mention of this. I think it's a good idea. Collective bargaining agreements are often contractual issues that we can't touch, but maybe consideration in the future is to have somebody from the Finance Committee be a member of those negotiating teams. And then the last thing is not to lose sight of free cash, which is going to come at a premium in future years, and we want to keep in mind that I think those 3 items up there actually conflict with one another. And I think it's worth talking, and that is that in the 5-year projections, we've projected $500,000 of free cash to be used in the budget every one of those years. Frankly, if we budget as tightly as we claim that we have done, particularly for FY25, there could be some risk of not attaining that level of 500,000, and then what do we do? Because there's 500,000 in the budget this year, that's still causing $1,130,000 deficit. But we also have financial management policies that indicate that we should be in the 5th year of a 10-year plan to get away from using all the free cash on our particular budget. Not the least of which is that we have, because we've dipped into both of these considerably in the last 2 years, but we have stabilization funds and capital depreciation funds that are not only woefully underfunded, they're dangerously underfunded. So some of what is on this page is absolutely directed toward the FY26 budget. Some of it is a little more longer term, but I think they're all worthy of talking about, with focus, of course, on FY26. But let's not lose sight of the other years so that we're not back here next year and the next year doing the same thing, talking about the same thing. So with that, rather than answer any questions, I'd like to go back to the top and start, and Heather didn't communicate this to you, but maybe you could take the lead on a discussion, and we don't need the number this evening. I think it's important, and the select board was very deft in mentioning last night that we don't have a lot of time. Originally, I thought we had until maybe June 14th, because the annual town meeting isn't until June 16th, but I always joke about this. The Finance Committee has 10 days and the printer has 2 weeks. So we got probably 2 weeks to do this. I think later on we'll talk about meeting dates, but I think if we can talk a lot about the things that we are going to request of you, Heather, and the department heads to come back to us. I don't think any of it, it'd be nice if all of it or some of it was resolved tonight, but that's not the expectation. But the expectation is that next week we really have some hard numbers as where we are. But you have mentioned on a couple of occasions that maybe there's some room in the local revenue side, and maybe you want to talk about that. And I'll talk about some of these, you can talk about some of these, and hopefully other committee members will chime in as well.
Sure. So under the revenue sheet piece, there's a couple of things to bring to everyone's attention. So I did mention this last night at the select board meeting. So when we put the original revenue sheet together, we missed the insert of the debt interest for the municipal side in the tax levy, which is in our favor, of $86,519. Jeff, I'll send you these numbers after for your notes.
Thanks a lot.
$86,519. On the motor vehicle.
Could the clerk repeat that, please?
Yeah. I'm actually looking at these out of guidance numbers.
So the next piece here was the motor vehicle excise. So we talked about this a little bit last night. So I've been working with Larissa on that number. So there's a 20% increase max before she has to write an explanation that's very detailed to the state. But there's also the potential that if we write a number that's higher than what we actually collect this year, the state will not accept that number and we'll have a problem. So as of right now, we were at approximately $782,000 on Monday of what we've collected year to date for motor vehicle excise. Last year, we collected a anomaly number of about $840,000. This year, we still have approximately $70,000 or so that is committed, which we may or may not collect some or all of it. It's usually a good idea that we'd collect some, but probably not all. To date, we had funded approximately or estimated for next year just over $760,000. So, you know, if we're okay with it, and, you know, again, it's not a comfortable number, and it will reduce, to Mark's point, the ability to generate free cash next year like we normally do, but we could increase that estimate from just over the 760 something mark to 790, and that would increase our revenue adjustment by $26,594. And then the only other piece on the revenue side, and I'm happy to touch on Mark's pieces there, is under the state aid, or rather, under state aid, we are currently up to the Senate's version of the budget, and the Senate's version of the budget versus what we had written is about, some things went up, some things went down, a net difference of about negative $7,705. So it's still gonna go through the joint ways and means and then get signed off at the end of the day. That may or may not happen before town meeting, but right now that's a little bit of a difference than what we had. All in all, that would adjust our revenues by increasing the revenues in the amount of $105,408. And it would be decreasing our budget down to $1,024,560. As far as the other two pieces you have up here, Mark, the last one I assume you wanted to address, but as far as new growth increase, going from 65 to 80,000, we're struggling right now to even get to that $65,000 number before the end of June. Dee is here from the Board of Assessors. She can happily answer any questions anyone has on how we get to new growth or where those numbers currently are. But we've been struggling over the past couple of years. Right now, as discussed last night, the select board meeting, we do have an annual town meeting article to repurpose some of the funds we had from a prior article to put towards the mapping that we've been talking about, near map and push pin, that a lot of assessors' offices have had great success with adding to the new growth that they're able to collect. So that wouldn't solve our problem for FY 26's budget, but it would start help making improvement hopefully for FY 27.
So Heather, the number that you ended with, does or does not that include the Wachusett Regional School District assessment adjustment?
It does not include the Wachusett Regional School District assessment. I just met with the school district yesterday in the morning with the other town administrators. They had discussed always the potential that if they get additional funding, they'd like to share it back to the towns beyond what they originally had budgeted. We were talking yesterday, approximate splits, Holding got about 50%. I want to say Rutland was about a quarter, or 25%. Sterling got almost close to about 10% last year, and I think we were just over 8%, and then Princeton had the rest. So we wouldn't quite net, even if that $700,000 came back, and if that was in the final budget. Remember, state aid is still an evolving process. Even if that $700,000 was in the final budget, I don't think we would necessarily see 10% of that. It would be less than that number. But I don't think that's something we can necessarily account for at this time.
Can we get a closer, definite answer to that? Because my understanding was from the meeting of 5 of the member town finance committee chairs with the superintendent and with the vice president of finance. And that was followed by a school committee motion that the $700,000 overage that they're expecting would go back to the member towns to reduce their assessment. I was told it was 700,000. I used 10%, and unfortunately it's probably 8.9%, but that's $70,000 worth chasing to determining definitively whether it's coming or not coming. I believe it is.
So, and that's the same message I got yesterday, that if they get that money, that's their intent. The only problem is that we don't know we're gonna have the vote of the school committee or even a finalized state budget before June 16th, let alone by June 30th. So I don't know if we can count on that money coming in. I think it's one of those things that just like this year, because they ended up reducing their budget, we'll have some money left over and generated for free cash. What could always happen is that if they do reduce their budget and they reduce the assessment and you get to the fall town meeting in November, whenever it may be, you can always reduce their assessment on paper at that point to match what their actual assessment is, and then you can reappropriate that money somewhere else. But you wouldn't be able to do it, I don't believe, at the annual town meeting. We don't have 100% confirmations coming.
Yep. So just trying positively to try to make this work and get it reduced. So the backdrop, and Dee, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the backdrop that I understand on the new growth was that there was a there was a email exchange with the town administrator that it would be 80,000, but we're not sure we're gonna make it. So
I think
then I had an email with the town administrator and said, well, if it's 80,000 and they don't think we're gonna make it, let's not budget 80,000. Let's budget 65. So now I'm thinking, all right, well, let's go back to the original email that I think had the 80,000. I think I've paraphrased this pretty well. So the question is it 65 or is it 80, or are you in a position to even say?
Yes, I think that in March, we sent you an email
Yeah.
from Kateri, and at 65, and we are going to be really stretching it to get to the 65. There's no way we're going to see 80. We just don't have the growth. And that's why this new near map that we're looking at would be so good, because the near map, what it does is goes above and looks at the properties that we can't get into to look at. For instance, if someone has a fence around their backyard and inside the fence are sheds and things, we can't go in there. But a near map can really pinpoint the amount of blacktop that someone has, the amount of acreage that they have behind fencing and things like that, the buildings that they've put up that we would not be able to necessarily see. So that near map, according to many of the towns, has really brought in a lot of new growth, which won't help us for '26, but certainly going forward, it would help quite a bit.
Tony, you made a presentation regarding the Economic Development Committee a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was kind of a sandwich. The middle was really good. The beginning was some tough love, and the ending was not a great story. But I would just submit to everybody that 6 years ago, our new growth was $154,000. That's a precipitous drop. And the takeaway is that contractors and developers are not enamored with coming to Paxton to do the work because of an unfortunate business-unfriendly reputation that we have, and now we're seeing it impact our annual budget. Because 154,000 would be pretty sweet. Struggling to make 65 is putting a hardship on the entire budget, and more than that, it has an image issue associated with it, which you can't dollarize, but maybe we just did by having that deep cut. So I don't know what the answer is, but we can't have it be 50,000 next year and 45 next year and 35 next year when we want to take it the other way. And the Economic Development Committee's doing everything in its power to take it the other way, but they've got some hurdles. So, I didn't mean to speak on you.
Can I say, yeah, can I?
Yeah, can you identify yourself?
This is Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add one other note that we put a lot of the economic development on the fact it's tough to build, but I think the town has to take some responsibility and all the people here. I mean, every year we're going through this now. So I think there's a responsibility of everyone in town as well, right? Why would a company want to come in and build in Paxton if every year we are fighting to just make our numbers? That's not a good optic either, and I want people to realize that as well.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
So if we look at 2, 3, and 4, it's kind of, for lack of a better word, and don't mean to be the professor, but it's kind of like the homework assignment to I think the department heads were looking for some guidance. To kind of tell us what you want, tell us what the boundaries are, tell us what the parameters are. And I don't want to sit here and reduce the paper budget for the printer by half when I find out that that's just crippling to the town clerk's office. I think they need to tell us what they can live with and live without and the like. And I've given some parameters, but if you look at number 4, 5% and 10% is gonna hurt some departments, but it's not gonna get us to $1,130,000 either.
No, I think our starting point should be number 3. I mean, it is just that, outside of guidance. So I think that is a good place to start, and then we go from there.
Do we have a total number for that?
291.
You've added those 4?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
God, I hope I'm right in that accounting class. But, yeah, 291. So,
But good point, good suggestion. I think my point is I'd want police and fire to tell me one more time, what does that mean?
yeah.
Because I like the attractiveness of cutting it from the budget as well, but I think we owe them the courtesy of saying one last time, that's what you want, then we have no vehicles on the road, and we have no coverage during the evening, and then, I'm not trying to do the
No,
gloom
I-
and
I-
doom thing,
yeah.
because I'm trying to cut and balance the budget, but I don't want to sit here and say, let's immediately take that out. Same thing with DPW. But DPW's 114 could tie into number 9, which is the Chapter 90.
Yeah.
You know, what can we get creative? And we keep saying no to everything, then we're not gonna get anywhere, but there's gotta be a way where we can find a way to, okay, we're gonna tap into some of those funds, and we can find a way to use it for some of these other things which are currently in the budget. So, didn't mean to rain on your
No,
really
no,
good
no.
point, Jeff, I'm just saying that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. My point was just that it should be a starting point, not that we decide to remove from the table. That's fine to go back to the department heads.
Heather, when I look at number 4, I mean, where's 5%, 10% gonna get us?
So number 4 is kind of going to be in conflict with number 5, right? Because a lot of those things that you see, travel, meetings, conferences, are part of your purchase services. You're also going to run into trouble on some of them because you can't eliminate everything. There's legal requirements, right? So if you're the police department, post requires you to have so many hours of X, Y, and Z. So there's limitations there. There's certifications that people have to maintain and keep up, so there's gonna, it really goes with the fine-tune comb. You have, a good example, the assessor's office, we have a brand-new assessor who's required to be certified within X number of years, and that requires them to go to training, right? So that impacts that side. Purchase services also depends on the department and what it is. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not, right? You look at the treasurer collector, she has Harper's payroll services within her purchase services, right? So, and that happens for a lot of the small departments. Not all of those pieces are centralized. Some of those pieces, like the pieces for the contract with Vision to go out and assess properties as part of the assessor's purchase services. So things are all intermingled. There was a request last night from the select board to look at, the small departments with their salaries, and then as well as the purchased services and supplies, and Larissa was able to compile that today, so I can get that out to everybody in the next day or so, just so you all have the same information, but the numbers are pretty small.
Yeah,
It's not gonna be an impactful
yeah.
change. As far as the other pieces go, select board already asked us to take a look at out of guidance. We have a department head meeting tomorrow. I have some of those numbers already penciled through, but I haven't had a chance to check in with everyone to make sure I understand things myself before I go ahead and write those numbers. But I think we can do some of those reductions. going up to the earlier one, which I think was number 3, which had to do with not filling open positions. We know about a couple of them, but again, that's one of those things we got to check in with all the departments for what the actual impact is and if it holds them completely stopped in the water at this point, if they don't fill what's currently open.
Yeah, it's actually, if you scroll down, it's number 2, and I'm smart enough to know that if you have an assistant position that you're not filling, I don't want that to lead to the full-time position to leave because they can't do the work of 1.5 people. So it's a tough balance, but unfortunately, we got to make some tough decisions and tough cuts, and I'm hoping that items 2, 3, 4, and 5, not in a jubilant way, but at least in a participatory, contributing kind of a way, that they would come back to us with their best possible cuts that they can live with. And I understand 4 and 5 are competing a little bit, but maybe the deal is that 5 is right out of the gate, and then after 5, you still go back and cut 5% under number 4. What about the repurposing? We've talked about this a number of times, and there's some articles, and one in particular is Tiverton Lights that's been talked about at Finance and at Planning Committee for probably 3 years, and there are also some articles regarding repurposing some DPW funds and some town telephone savings funds and buying clickers, and I mean, are all those, they sound good, but are they the right thing to do when we're trying to balance a $1.3 million budget?
Sure. So the first one being Tiverton Field Lights. So this is a conversation we've had several times over the past 3 years. So this was a capital exclusion article that got passed at the ballot in May of 2022, and I don't remember if it was sometime during the summer in which it went back to the town meeting and got approved at that point. So it's a little bit different than a normal article that would just be appropriating free cash. Usually what happens, and that's how most of the other articles have come to fruition, we've either appropriated free cash or operating stabilization. Those articles live on until we close them out. Those articles are also the ones, Mark, you just referenced, where we look at repurposing them. If we didn't use them for the first project or money was left over, we repurpose what's already there. This one's a little bit different because it was a capital exclusion. We reached out to the state a couple years ago. Larissa had a couple emails she sent to me based on that conversation, and it was our understanding from that conversation that because it was a capital exclusion and it wasn't just a regular appropriation at town meeting, that the only thing you could do if you weren't going to use it within the scope and the purpose of that project was to close it out to free cash. So that, we are checking right now with legal to make sure that we're not missing something, and that is indeed correct based on our interpretation. And we should be able to report back once we hear from legal. I emailed them this morning, haven't heard yet. But the other possibility option would be to close it out to free cash. I think we would want to make sure that I have been keeping Kathy Card, the rec director, apprised of the conversations relative to this topic, but I think they'd want an opportunity to speak to it as well. So that's Tiverton Field. Does that make sense? No. Okay.
It doesn't make sense, yes. It doesn't make sense that we're speaking about it, and that money's never gonna go to anything for the lights. It's way underfunded. It's gonna sit there. Rec is not gonna give up 75 to 80% of their revolving fund to finance the rest of it. We need to push this to go to free cash. This is 7 or 8% of this deficit we're working on, and it's just sitting there, and it's doing nothing, and it's not gonna do anything. And we're gonna come back to it next year, and it's gonna be sitting there at 79.9 again. I mean, this is low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. If we can do it, it should be done.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Jeremy. If I may, I think the reality is, the bottom line is, this is the worst deficit this town's ever had, am I correct, right? Just make sure I'm not missing anything in the 10 years I was gone. period. And so, I mean, things are gonna have to be taken. I mean, luxuries are gonna have to be abandoned. And Heather, I know you did some preliminary work on a rough cut at the total number, percentage-wise, for the town's budget that would need to be reduced. Is that around 20%?
It was north of 20% if you started at 1,129,000 and change.
Right. I mean, I think that the difficult conversation here is that we probably should ask, and I'm not saying we would apply that 20% to all departments equally, but I think we should ask the department heads to report back with some contingency budgeting with a reduction of whatever that number is, approximately 20%, for us to, you know, what is their operating model with a reduction of that? And then we can take a look at it and make some decisions of what priorities are that we just talked about last night. So, I mean, I know that's a drastic step, but I think that that's where we're at, because some of the small items just, I mean, out of guidance is a factor, maybe that's 30, roughly 30%, but I think we have to ask for some budgets that reflect that 20% reduction, and then make some decisions off of that.
So, can I just address the other two repurposed?
Yep, go ahead.
So there's three other repurposes now. One was taking the remaining funds from the DPW feasibility study piece and putting it towards the DPW building. So as we know, this is one of the town's major needs on the projects. It's been identified for quite some time to look at the DPW and to replace it. We are working to try to get people a safe and comfortable place for administrative offices using state earmark funds, so not even town funds. We're also working on trying to get designed, which it's done, but now installed, a septic system that actually functions for the current location of the DPW building, that works with the building as it is, so they have a functioning bathroom, and also would work with any new building that may come about. So those are two important pieces. Part of the reason to repurpose the rest of the funds slightly, it was already put aside for the DPW purpose, but put it more specifically towards the building purposes, is in the event that we need additional funds to be able to support the redo of the Klingler building for the administrative offices, or anything else that currently comes up with the DPW building. We have doors that don't currently close, things that are constantly having other issues because it's an old building that's falling apart. It's just repurposing what we had originally intended, and those funds would probably likely go a little bit further than having to repurpose them for something else or put towards something else, and then having to come back to the reserve fund next year anytime something major breaks over at that building, and then they can't afford it within their current operating budget. That's my argument for that one. The other two being the $10,000 for the near map and push pin. So that was one of the things that we had in out of guidance. It's what Dee had spoke to a little bit earlier. It's what I keep literally plugging every time I have an opportunity to be in front of a mic on this. This is something that other assessors' offices have all told us that has been worth the bang for the buck, right? We talk about new growth numbers are kind of stinky. Well, this number, in many cases, a lot of the assessors' offices have reported that they've been able to not only make back the money that they had spent on the 1 year of the software, but also increase the amount of new growth even higher than that. Because you're able to go back and you're looking at those flyovers from this year, and you use pushpin to complement Nearmap to be able to pull data to tell you what the changes were. And you're able to capture that. You're able to use the tool moving forward. It measures within 6 inches. So it does seem like, oh my gosh, why are we spending $10,000 on maps when we're crunching everything else? Because this is one of those things that it's a spend $10,000 to make more than $10,000.
Is that a one-time 10, or is that every year?
It's an annual piece.
An annual 10,
So
or
it's
annual
an,
piece?
it's an annual 10, but you do it the first year, you don't have to necessarily renew it the second, Jeremy, right?
Well, I mean, if it pays for itself in 6 months, if you pay 10 to make 20, understood. But if you know,
Yep, but I feel like we have some level of confidence from the number of assessors' offices we've spoke to, and even the state. When Terry talked to the state, they were also a fan of this, and allows the town to use it to supplement the work that they do with on-site inspections. So, and then the $5,000 was to put towards a TA search firm, and that came about from ideas and conversations at the last select board meeting. So I was just wrapping a bow around the 15,000. Otherwise, I'd have 5,000 left, and then I wouldn't know what to do with it. That's all I have on that, Mark.
What about employee health insurance benefits paid? The Insurance Advisory Committee made a report recently, and while I understand in part one of the things that was reported, it kind of took me by surprise that we're paying employees not to be on our town insurance. Is that correct? And we're paying two of them north of $10,000. Now, I understand what would occur if they jumped on the family plan or something of that nature, but it could well be a municipal thing, but in the private sector, I've never seen where that happens. And I'll take my firm as an instance. I have people that are on our health insurance plan, and one of them happens to be on her spouse's plan, and two of them are under 26, and they're on their parents' plan. I don't give them a bonus for doing that. That's a bonus to the firm. We're not doing that here, and these are tough times, so the question is to be asked, is that the right thing to be doing?
So I believe that was established a number of years ago and something that was recommended by the Insurance Advisory Committee, and I also believe it was voted to be approved by the Select Board. So it would have to go back to the Select Board for any modifications.
Well, I think it's something worth considering and looking at. So the other thing is, if I look at the membership of that committee, there are 2, 4, 6, there are 8 people. If I'm not mistaken, 6 of them are department heads. Are the other 2 volunteers from the community?
Retiree. And then I don't know.
Light department, Cheryl.
Oh, light department.
So I guess, you know, my assessment so far is we've gone down the page and we've found all sort of reasons why we can't do any of these. And that's not gonna get us to $1.3 million. Maybe with some of the revenue, we're at $1 million, which is still the largest deficit that we've ever had. So as unpopular as that is that I've just said, and I'm not thrilled to have to be the one to say it, but those are the types of tough decisions that we gotta make, that the message has been sent to us by the voters to tighten this budget. I'm not sure that every one of them knows the details of that, but the macro message that has been sent is causing us to have to look at the micro things. And we haven't made our way down all 14 pages, but we've probably said no to 9 out of 11 so far.
So if you-
That's not gonna get us anywhere.
Just as an example, so if we take the field lights at 79,000, and then we are paying 2 employees, I think it's one is 7,000 a year and one is 9,000 a year, not to take the insurance, that's 100,000. Give or take. 96.
So just remember, if we can't repurpose the Tiverton field, and the only thing we can do is close it out to free cash, it wouldn't be available till you're certified free cash in the fall.
But here's my point, and Jeremy could speak to this tenfold better than I. It's not gonna happen. So make it happen so that it does convert to free cash. I don't know who's got to do what to do that, but Chris, you used the phrase at the candidates night about kicking the can down the road. This is the proverbial kicking the can down the road. It's not gonna happen. It was misguided mistake right from the chute. It was underfunded from the beginning. Make it come back to free cash and make it be put to better use. As opposed to all the reasons why we can't do it, we need to find a way where we can do it and make it happen. Otherwise, I don't know what, we're gonna have to, someone said close the library, we're gonna have to close the public safety departments. This is a big number that we're talking about, and 20 here and 79 there and another 330 there. We gotta cobble all of that together and stop, and I don't mean to say you, Heather, because it's all of us, but we gotta get a point to find a way to, yes, that's a good idea. Yes, we're gonna do that. Sorry that hurts, painful, but this is the message that's been sent to us. Do it, we gotta do it. And I don't think we're doing that tonight. And I don't think we're gonna do it any better next week. I'm hoping that the departments are gonna really take a lead role, but that's asking a lot, and there could be a reluctance for them to do that. But we gotta start saying yes to that. So let's go to number 9. We kicked that one around a number of times, and we were told, couldn't do it, couldn't do it, couldn't do it, and then we have the document right here that said, yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. So we gotta find a way that we can utilize, this is a big number, I don't even know, it's like $300,000 or $400,000 of Chapter 90 funds that are supposed to be used for paving, but there are exceptions that you can use it for small equipment, and I think that there are exceptions that if it has road-related importance or need, like paving and line painting and guardrails, which is in our budget, let's get this Chapter 90 funds to subsidize so we can take it out of the budget. But everyone says, no, we can't do that. Yes, we can do that. And we need to be creative and be the ones that do it, as opposed to nope, 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 can't. Otherwise, we're not gonna gain anything. We need to do that, and the DPW director, I don't mean to put the onus on him, he's gotta come back to us and with you, Heather, to exhaust every possibility of what is in here that we can wring out and put in and help subsidize our budget. Can't continue to go down this page and say no to everything. That's not gonna work. Sale of 10 West Street. We shouldn't be in the landlord business because we're not very good at it.
I can just tell you, Mark, I've had at least 3 legitimate people approach me that would put offers in if we put an RFP out for that. And they understand the septic, they understand the electric, they don't care about that. You know, I mean, would their offers be good enough? I don't know, but, we discussed this at the last time we met at the Economic Development Committee. I think almost everybody was on board, you know, that it was just, I get it that there might be other uses, but I don't know, at some point it becomes a numbers game, right? If somebody was willing to buy that for, I don't know if it's 75,000, 150,000, or 300,000, but whatever. Like, what's the other side of that? What's the cost that what are we saving by not selling it? Like, what's the cost down the road that we're avoiding by hanging on to it? 'Cause
Yeah, what I'd like to focus, we really shouldn't spend too much time on this one, because it's not gonna help us for this.
Well, why wouldn't it help
But-
us for this?
To execute a sale, it's possible, I suppose.
Even, Tony, you're gonna love this, even if you sold it, it goes to free cash, and you
Right,
won't touch it
right.
until next fiscal year.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but next fiscal year is gonna come, I think. I haven't looked at my calendar, but
So
I think it's
let
coming.
me go back to my earlier comments. I said that most of the focus is on the FY '26 budget. But there's a lot of things that we need to put in place right now so that we don't have them facing us staring us in the face for FY '27. This could be a perfect one. There's been 3 hurdles. One is the septic system. Tony's just spoken to 3 or 4 people that don't mind that. The second is, we need it because we're gonna expand town hall. We're never gonna expand town hall. And the third is, it's under lease. I would suggest that you appoint an ad hoc committee. I'd be happy to be on it. I'll talk with the leaseor right now, and I bet we can negotiate an end to that particular lease. Those are 3 hurdles that I've heard for 6 months, none of which hold any water. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. I don't care if it's free cash next year. We need all the free cash that we can get next year, because we've already got 500,000 in the budget, and I'm not sure we're gonna reach that. So let's do that to make sure that we don't have a bigger problem in 2027. Jeff's made a good point, but my good point is, let's do it now, so that we don't have the problem then. Refinancing the fire truck. Why can we not do that? We, in my experience during the override is, 1 in 10 people even know that we have a fire truck. 1 in 10 know that we took delivery, okay? And when you tell them that we paid cash for it, and now we're gonna ask for $1,130,000 override, I think we get the message right there and there. That was not a good use of ARPA funds. I've been on record for 2 years on that. We need to fix that. We could use that $750,000 right now for a million other things, and I'm suggesting that somebody come back to me and say, it's too late, it's too old, it doesn't work, refinancing doesn't work. When we could have refinanced it, it would have been $51 per household per year for 10 years. The rates have gone up, it's not as attractive, but you can't say that we did it to save money, because I'd like to have that argument tenfold in a session where that's the only topic that we talk about, and I can refute 100 times over that we didn't save a nickel by doing that. It was poor use of free cash or opera funds cash, and there's a way around it. It's still a new low mileage vehicle. It's eligible for debt. I think we ought to consider that, or somebody's got to come back to tell me we absolutely cannot. And if there's a select board that needs to do that, then please do. But that's a big chunk of cash on a cash-strapped town that we just gave out back in the fall. And if the full population knew that we did this, I think they'd have a heart attack. Because the few that I spoke to that didn't even know that we did this, and it's been talked about, it's been, the ARPA funds are on the website, I know that, but all the people are not plugged into the things like we are. There are other people that go about their daily life, they don't know those things, they don't watch them as carefully as we do. That's a big issue. I'm trying to find a way to save what I thought was a bad decision and make it a good decision and help get a stream of income and a stream of cash here. Otherwise, we're not gonna get to $1.3 million.
I think we don't want to keep saying no, because that doesn't get us to $1.3 million. Like, we just have to get to the most feasible lower number, where we can explain to people that we did the best we could. Yeah, we didn't get to $1.3 million, but we still have to at least take those steps, you know?
Right.
If we're saying no constantly, I think we went through this exercise last year, it was like, that doesn't get us to the finish line. We get an inch closer to the finish line, though, and go from there.
And remember, any option that we do that may seem a little bit outside the box, not outside of outside of guidance or outside the box, every little bit could help in not reducing a person.
Right.
Not doing what?
Giving us the ability to reduce less people. Every little bit that we find here or there, you know, whether it's 20,000 in health insurance or something over here and something over there, that's less people that will be impacted, and less service, theoretically, service reduction. I still think we need to, at some point in this conversation tonight, have direction back to the department heads about coming back with some contingency budgeting on whatever percentage we agree on. I think that has to happen. You're looking at me, I already said it.
Yep, good point, I don't know how to follow it up. I think that we've given some direction to Heather to go back to the department heads. Are you looking to define that a little bit more
Yeah, fine.
deeply or carefully?
Yes,
So-
yes,
So you want to
yeah.
share where you're thinking?
Yeah, and Heather, we talked about this, the numbers are approximately 20%.
Yeah, so the original number was, it was north of 20%. So you have a couple of things you have to figure out when you're asking them to cut numbers, right? So you're already taking out of guidance. In some cases, there's a potential that we don't fund vacant positions, right? Which is already cut off the top of that department.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, when you're looking at percentage reductions, are you allowing that department to consider any of those reductions that have already been taking place, right? The out of guidance, an unfilled vacant position, to count as part of that percentage? Or are you saying, reduce these pieces, and then on top of it, reduce by another number? So I'm still playing with numbers. Select board met last night, so I've already looked at, health insurance, general insurance, central purchasing, those different pieces, right? I've also looked at a good portion of the out of guidance. I don't have solid numbers because my numbers I'm not balancing where I want to balance, and it's driving me nuts, and I'm not comfortable showing a number until I have it balanced. Plus, I still need to check, to Mark's point, your point, Jeff, and the select boards last night, with all the departments that are impacted to make sure I've captured everything correctly. But at the end of the day, that reduces the amount that we still have to cut, right? Almost in half.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a little bit over $500,000.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you're looking at an 11%. But then it brings the same question, begs the question again, right? Is that 11% to every department in addition to what cuts have already been there? Or is that 11% only for those who haven't? Or is it like, how do you figure out how to apply that? Understanding that if you start doing 11% to all the departments, even the small departments, you're gonna be cutting hours.
So you can, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. We talked about, the direction here last night was not to look at single-person departments. So, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. The net of this is, there needs to be some contingency budgeting that's provided to it. The department heads know their department's the best, and they can come back to us with some form of adjustment so we can at least look at it. I think that's the only start. Yes, out of guidance, but they can take a closer look at that, whether we include it or not, but there needs to be some form of.
Yeah, you're not telling them to make that cut.
No, I don't-
You're asking them to tell us what that cut.
What that looks like.
Right, and I think it's fair to
Yeah.
do that, and to your point, Heather, I don't think you would ever like tell someone you're losing a person, you're losing this and this, and giving 20%. I don't think that would.
No.
I think you
balance
do
of
the
budget.
top line deductions first, like you said, and you get down to whatever it is, 11%.
Right.
And then, but you do,
Right.
it's not fun to ask people, but I think you are just asking them, hey, what does this look like if you have to cut 11%? That's different than saying,
Exactly. Well
give
said.
me 11%.
We have no choice. We have no choice.
You can make decisions on it on an individual basis once you see it, but you have to
Right.
see
Exactly.
what it looks like first.
Yeah, if I could just touch on that, I'm not advocating an 11, whatever the number is, cut across all departments, but we need to see a number so then we can look at what the priorities that were set last night and say maybe it's less, public safety was a priority, maybe it's less of a cut to public safety, more to somewhere else. But we need to see some form of a number, so then we can put together a $1,030,000.
Guys, allow me, Chief, do you have a microphone?
No, but if you don't mind, I think literally 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, happy to have you speak.
Is there a
Only
PowerPoint?
2, you go 2.5, you're cut off.
I can't promise to.
Do you have a handout?
Yeah,
Yeah,
where's
you
the
have a
handout?
PowerPoint? We like your
No
PowerPoint.
hand ups, no hand ups.
I show that to people.
It's on, all right. Good evening, Mike Pingatori, Fire Chief. Thank you, I know, to Finance, Select Board, Heather, Dee, Chris, and everybody at home. I know that this is not the ideal position to be in. I fought very hard last year for my department. I'm still very, very tired from that. This is not an envious position to be in. This is not the time to feed ideologies. This is not the time to tear departments apart. Please, I beg of you, both Select Board and Finance. I see what you're trying to do. I applaud you for trying to nickel and dime and save employees. Bottom line is, we were at least $1.4 million in the hole last year. We are $1.1 million in the hole this year. And that's with free cash and ambulance revenue, I get that. That's not even counting it this
Really,
year.
2 million.
It's 2.1 million. We can't depend on that. Free cash. I generated, I think, $1,000 left over in my budget last year. I'm gonna be in the negative this year because I had to cut $60,000. I have a firefighter that's out of work permanently due to a cardiac injury he suffered in the line of duty this year because we don't have staffing, all right? So my plea to both of you tonight is this. This is not gonna get any better. I cannot plan. Department heads heard me go on a rant the other day. My part of my job is to do a 10-year strategic plan on my department. I can't plan 10 months because I don't know what my budget's gonna be. I implore you tonight, if this is the night, to get us the numbers, department heads, so we know what to cut. Also, I would implore you to not worry about the 1.1 million. You should be worried about at least the 2.5 to 3 million that we probably should cut so we can sustain services for the next 10 years. Otherwise, change the sign from the town of Paxton and put it to the town of Rutland or the town of Holden, because that's where we're heading. You're not gonna have control over these departments. We complained about the fixed cuts from the school. We're heading that way with our departments, with your department, your personalized services. My $1.2 million budget that we complain about, the fire truck that I bought, that we still complain about, even though it was approved 3 years ago, it was the top of the capital list 3 years ago, okay? That is gonna be a mandated purchase by the regional fire department soon enough, right? We complain that the school doesn't come in 2.5%. Regional fire department's not gonna come in 2.5%, they're gonna hand you the bill. This is the time, if you want the services that you've grown accustomed to, and I know I'm gonna contradict myself, and my union's gonna be mad at me, the police union's probably gonna be pissed at me too. All right? If we're gonna cut, let's cut deep, let's restructure, let's reorganize. Let's build Paxton better. I hate to sound cliche. So, that's all I got for tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, can you stay up for a minute? I certainly, I'm sure you speak for everybody. I appreciate your comments, but I'm not sure where you're leaving us.
Well, I'm leaving you that if we're gonna get a number, let's get a number tonight to cut. But I'm telling you, if it's $1.1 million, I'll see you guys all next year at the same argument at the same time. Because it's a Band-Aid.
Mike, if I could paraphrase, I think what you're trying to say is, we have to come up with a new operating model for this town. I think that's what, am I correct?
And I'm sorry that I wasn't so clear.
No, that was clear. Yeah, no, so I think what the thing is that, and let's face it, so it's 1.1 this year. Heather, you did some projections, and you don't have to stand by them, because who knows what state aid will be in the future. Guarantee you it'll probably be less next year. There's a lot of financial problems at the state. Last administration blew it, this one is too, sorry. But, you know, the bottom line is that state aid picture isn't gonna be any better. So the budget, like you said, and I had written it in the deck a month or so ago, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So if we know those headwinds we have headwinds now, but they're gonna get worse. I think there's no, it's upsetting, it's not good, no one likes it. I don't like to see it, but I think there has to be a legitimate conversation about what the operating model is.
Mike, my observation, though, is that what you're describing, which I don't think in the last couple of days is the first time it's been shared, it strikes me that's got to start from the bottom up.
Yep.
I'm happy you said yes, because that's an agreement. That's not the place for the finance committee to tell the fire department or the police department how to run their departments.
We just want you
So
to
it's
come
got
with
to
a
come from the bottom, which is part of, maybe we haven't been clear in articulating our point, but part of our message is to go back, to have Heather to go back to the departments, and I said 5% and 10%, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's a complete restructuring, but whatever it is that gets taken back to them in the next couple of days, it's got to start from the bottom up.
Right, right. And I think what Mike's asking for is a number, which we talked about, provide a number, and then the department heads can come back with those numbers, and we can decide what are some table stakes, what we value as important. I can tell you personally, no way would I ever approve a budget that has less than 2 police officers on it at any given time. That's table stake, personally, for me. Doing anything with this Council on Aging is a table stake for me, and there's many others, fire, I mean, so, but I think if we give a number, it may be a high number, it doesn't mean we're gonna execute that number, but we need to see what that looks like, so then we can begin to piece together a budget.
I think what you're also saying is make sure that number accounts for years down the road, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's like,
It's terrible.
we do this and you're right back here next year. And
I grew up in this town. It's not a business town, never was. It never will be. It's never gonna fix this problem. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's 40 years now. Jeff, you got 50, you know, right?
Not 50, 45, anybody listening, 45.
Paxton is a community,
That was deliberate, we're in the same age.
Paxton is a community that people come to rest their heads and know that they're safe. They leave Paxton every day. It's the land of cul-de-sacs.
And it's, infrastructure's getting old,
Yes.
infrastructure's getting tired.
Yeah,
And it doesn't have infrastructure. You don't have natural gas, you don't have sewer.
right.
I think, obviously, I'm speaking selfishly from the economic development thing though, but you have to be really careful you don't go backwards because the population's not growing anymore. You can also, Ben brought up a point earlier about, you have to be careful. I think you have to also be careful that taxes don't get so high that people
Right.
look at that as more of a negative than the services that they provide.
I think that ship sailed.
So,
Well, that's what I mean, though, like, there's I think I've been here 20, I didn't grow up here, but I've been here 20-plus years now, and the dynamic has changed dramatically for me, like, I came in and, again, I worked in EMS for a while, and I looked at everything we had, and this was like Mecca, whatever the right word is, I don't want to go religious, I guess, but it doesn't look the same anymore, like, it's getting.
no, it's grown.
Yeah,
The world's changed. People want things on demand. There's no, if my ambulance is a minute behind the 8 ball, where were you? And that's the culture we live in now.
yeah.
Uber can get there faster. But all I ask is that we take this, and not as a negative, what I asked. This should be a positive. We should all come together, department heads, employees, collective bargaining units, the select board, finance, capital. This is an opportunity that we share, that we should embrace. Normally, we'd take a 5-year rebuild, 1 year of studies, 4 or 5 years of town meetings to try and get to where we're at. We are at the cusp here, and let's reshape this and get us into the 21st century. We're just, again, Chris, kicking the can down the road.
It is well said.
So, Chief, thank you for that, but my takeaway is I think we're closer to where you may be trying to lead us than we are. What I would suggest is that you're looking for a number, so let's assume it's don't even assume, it's $1,000,013. So Heather, scrub the revenue as best you can, get a number to us. Let's, for the sake of argument, say it's 300,000. So now we're, 800,000 away. Go down this list and say, we can do the health insurance, we can do the repurposing, We can do 2 or 3 others of these. Now we're at 650,000, and you go to the departments and say, there's your number. You got 41 cost centers, of which not all of them are departments, some of them are retirement and health insurance, but the departments, there's your number, 600,000, get in a room, restructure DPW, restructure fire and EMS, restructure police, restructure the single member, one-person departments, come up with 600,000, or the best that you can come close to that, and then come back to us. That's what I think's gotta happen. It's gotta be revenue, as many of these on this sheet as you can do, and then back to the departments with a number. I don't know what that number is. Is it 550? Is it 850? I'm not sure. But I think that's what you need to do, which I think is the message that Mike's
Yep.
shared.
So here's just a thought, right? So I've already done a lot of work down this list, but before I did this work and before the override even came up, we had an approximate what the cut would be across the board to the departments that we could actually cut to get to the 1.13, right? We know that there's a couple, because we're so late in the year, we actually have actual numbers for general insurance, for health insurance, for things we didn't have before, so we're not guessing anymore, we're actually at precise numbers. So we can correct those off the top, we can correct the revenues off the top. What if we worked with a couple numbers for the departments and then came back next week with the Select Board and Finance Committee meeting jointly on Wednesday, where we can kind of go over the different possibilities here. So we could go through this list, right? You could do the don't fund open positions, you could do don't do the out of guidance, but then it gets messy. How much do you cut if that includes that piece? What if we say, okay, departments, we want you to get to, we want to see what a certain percentage cut looks like for each of the departments. We want it across the board. Maybe we give 2 different numbers, right? The number that it would be the 1.13 minus, the correction for the revenue and the adjustment with those accounts that we usually can't touch that I've adjusted, right? Whatever that number is, let's say it's 19%, I don't know. We give that to all the departments, say, cut 19%, show us what that looks like, and in your numbers, we would like you to use as guidelines, not filling vacant positions and taking out of guidance and looking very closely at purchase service, whatever it is. And then we take another number, to Mike's point, and we actually say, okay, well, whatever that base number was, let's say, again, it's, a little under $1 million or 900,000, whatever, let's add to the deficit, and let's say it's additional 500,000. Let's show what it would look like if we got off that reliance of free cash to leave it for later to build a little buffer to the budget. And then what's that percentage? That percentage will be higher, probably closer to 30s or something like that. And then say, okay, now departments, we'd also like you to give us a model of what that looks like. We give them the 2 numbers to bring back, and then FinCom and Select Board can meet next week, and they can go through the priorities, right? How do we find a way, is there a way that we can save small departments in their entirety? What do we look at? What does it look like if we implemented these across the board, either of them? And then how do we compare this and what do we want to do? You'll have all the information in front of you. It will, again, will be high level. No one's going to get down to, we don't buy paper clips anymore, right? But they'll have a staffing structure. This means 1 human. This means 0 humans. This means 0.25 people to be able to make that happen. It gives them a lot more guidance, to Mike's point, in a department's budget to figure out how they make it happen. And then they use some of these as part of the model to do it.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a perfect summation, yes. If you're looking for a response, yes,
Okay.
let's do that.
Would FinCom be open to doing it as a joint meeting next
Yeah.
week with the Select Board?
Yeah,
So we can hammer it
absolutely.
out? Can we start the meeting before 7 o'clock with the assumption that this is gonna be a all-hands-on-deck meeting in which people are gonna need pens, paper,
Supplies.
and, yeah. Can we start it before 7? Is that possible?
I'm in. I can be, yeah, whatever you need.
Sure.
Yep.
Ben
6
already
o'clock.
dropped, so he's not gonna answer.
If you want to start at, 6 o'clock, it's fine.
May 21st at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, can we do?
Do we think that would work for you guys?
Yeah.
Well, I was told, make sure you wait until it's your turn. I don't want to step on anybody's toes here.
No, I had my
I would
head
think
down,
6 o'clock
Peter.
would be
Happy to recognize
I
you.
don't have everyone here, so I'd have to check, obviously, with 2 of the members that aren't here, but the 3 that are here seem to indicate that we're good.
Okay, and then we'll also invite all of the department heads so that we can have any questions that anyone has. And then is everyone okay if we change what our table structure is and we do it more like a group set of tables together?
Put them in
So,
a big round, yeah.
yeah, like a rectangle thing, so that,
We're all in on this, there's no,
okay.
Yeah, we trust
Okay, everyone's okay with that? All right, so I have a department head meeting tomorrow. I will have some preliminary baselines for everybody to work with, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, anything further on that pending our meeting to discuss it further next week?
no.
Can we just check, Tony, can you make Wednesday?
Yep.
Jeff, good.
yes, sir.
Ben, can you make next Wednesday?
You dropped off at 7:58. You're behind the times.
Okay,
We have a quorum.
thank you. So our next item is some year-end transfers. I think that they've, in fact, I know they've all been sent to you. Heather, you might be able to call them up in addition to that. I'd also ask whether or not you want to take a minute to do a super Reader's Digest version of the differences between a reserve fund transfer, a year-end transfer, and an internal transfer. Let's do the internal first.
Okay, was last night's too long?
Heather, just one thing, as the fire chief pointed out, I'm aging. Can we blow this up?
I'm trying to find there's the, sorry, I'm with you, Jeff.
I was actually talking about Larry, sorry, Jeff.
So 10 years ago, you could have seen it, and now you can't?
Excuse me, while Heather's pulling that up, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Are we also looking at things like the IT budget and other budgets other than, okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure. 'Cause
Just
Evan-
yours, only looking at your budget.
I don't have one. Thank you.
With a particular focus on the assessor's budget, yes, we're gonna look at all those.
Good, thank you.
Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So as Mark had stated, there's a couple different types of transfers. Internal transfers are the newest type. This is something we started a couple years ago when at town meeting, we now vote bottom line departmental budget. So it's the summary of anyone's independent budget of their salaries, their purchase services, and their supplies, equipment, et cetera. So what happens, that number gets voted, let's say it's $1,000 at town meeting. Time goes on, that department needs to move money for whatever reason from purchase services to supplies to wages. They fill out a internal transfer form, what they want to do, why they want to do it. They sign it, I sign it, the town accountant signs it, town accountant logs it on the website. We do these year-round. Whenever something comes up, you need to move money for one reason or another, something changed, they complete that form. Would you like me to cover next, Mark? Reserve?
Yeah.
Okay. So reserve fund transfers come out of the reserve fund. The reserve fund is an item in our operating budget. It's funded each year. For FY '25, it's funded at the amount of $50,000. The reserve fund is under the exclusive jurisdiction of the Finance Committee, and it is put aside for purposes of emergency or unexpected, unanticipated expenses. This is something that only the Finance Committee can approve. A department identifies something that has come up, whether it's something they broke that they didn't budget for, whether it's, a position or a person who's leaving and vacation payout that needs to happen, and it would be detrimental to that department to take it out of the wages and put the next person and underfund the budget. Whatever it may be, they complete the form, submit it to the reserve, submit it to the Finance Committee. Finance Committee reviews it at their meeting. If they approve it, then the reserve fund transfer happens. Again, the accountant logs all of these on the website. Reserve fund transfers can happen any time of year. Most of the time for departments, once we get to around May 1st, we often stop doing reserve fund transfers unless there's a bigger item or something very specific that we go to reserve fund, and we'll often go back to year-end transfers. Brings us to year-end transfers. Year-end transfers are available from May 1st through July 15th. They require 2 signatures, one from the Select Board and one from the Finance Committee in any particular order. These are ones that, as you wrap things up, as Mike had stated earlier, sometimes, departments have unanticipated, unexpected expenses that might start putting their budget towards being potentially over come the end of the year, and we have to fix that. Or something will come up and they need additional funds for it that they hadn't budgeted for it. There's no wiggle room internally, and maybe it doesn't meet the usual unanticipated or emergency piece of the reserve fund, but something they still need for whatever reason. We'll go to year-end transfers. We often look just to make accounting a little bit easier for certain lines that we know have extra fund or will have funds in them come the end of the year to pull from those. In this case, for all of these here, the 5 we're pulling from health insurance premiums. This line for the past couple of years always seems to have a little bit extra in it. This year in particular, we had a lot of turnover at the beginning of the year with positions and people leaving, so people were dropping health insurance. We also we traditionally fund a couple extra seats for the health insurance piece just in case something happens, because it is expensive if someone jumps on. We always generally we have a high number of people who do not take health insurance but could at any point. So we always keep that in mind when we're budgeting. That being said, that number did have a decent amount of money left in it this year. So when we went to set up these year-end transfers, we pulling them all from that line to make it a little bit easier. Those line item transfers are as follows. The first one is for the DPW to the DPW purchase services for the lift. This is in the amount of $12,290. Those who've been watching the Capitol, as Mark has even reported back to Finance Committee, this is something that was discussed at Capitol and was discussed here at Finance Committee, and I believe at the early April, I think it was April Select Board Finance Committee meeting, the Select Board asked to pull this from the Capitol side of things and have it funded through the department's budget and year-end transfers, if needed. So here it is. The second item is the town accountant purchase services. So our town accountant, Larissa Kendi, who's been with us for a while, just took the very last exam. She needed to become a certified municipal Massachusetts town accountant, which is not an easy exam as I understand it. And in doing so, she stayed over and incurred some expenses for hotel costs to be able to be on site. It was during a snow season. You never know what's going to happen. We wanted to make sure she took it, and we want to be able to reimburse her for her costs. This is not unnormal. This is something we normally do for other departments. It's just something we didn't have the wiggle room in her budget this year to pre-budget for. The third one here is veterans benefits. So we currently have one veteran that we pay monthly benefits to, and we're required to pay whatever falls into the capsule category there. And in this case, there was a couple months that there were some expenses that were higher. As such, we budget based on the last year with a little bit more to it, and we are going to be in the negative if we don't move $106.95 to that line. Legal expenses, so this is one that I tried to confuse Mark on successfully, I would say. We originally sent him a reserve fund transfer probably about a month ago, almost a month ago it feels like, for legal for March. We had originally had to move money previously this year internally. We moved it in the legal department from the tax title line over to our regular legal services or legal expenses. The tax title line is one that the treasurer collector uses to pursue tax title properties and also for legal counsel specifically for that purpose. We did not know if there were any outstanding bills that had been incurred that we had not paid yet. So we were a little bit more cautious to keep pulling money out of that line to cover the legal expenses. Once we got to May 1st, and she also finalized where she was with the bills, we still had some left in tax title, so we felt more comfortable just doing an internal transfer to make sure we got the March bill paid for legal. So that's all set. That being said, we still have money that is due to legal, and we know we're going to get another bill next month. So this has been a very active year for us on the legal side, particularly with a couple matters, and we also had 2 union contracts and two staff contracts that we were dealing with as well. So we have relied a lot more on legal. The April bill is just around $4,000. We have annual town meeting coming up, a zoning board of appeals hearing, which we had to rely on legal, as well as a couple zoning violations that should be wrapping up. But with that, we anticipate that we will likely expend that $10,000 between April, May, and even the June bill. So we're trying to get ahead of where we're going to be so we don't have to come back in 2 more weeks and ask for another year-end transfer for that. And then the last piece is the library purchase services. Pam had reached out. They don't have enough in their budget to cover it, but they have 3 computers that are have Windows on them and they're end of life. I think the computers are quite old. I think she reported on the form being about 10 years each. So they're not new. They pose a cybersecurity risk. And it's a request she had submitted because they do not have the funding within their budget to cover it. That's all I have.
So Heather, this, this point doesn't really apply to all 5 of these, but because there are 5, let me include it, envelop it in the comment. If we didn't spend these monies right here, then that money would be left in the health insurance department budget, which would carry over to free cash next year, because that's what free cash comes from. We either have revenues beyond what we budgeted, or we have expenditures less than what we've spent. But health insurance is in the likelihood of spending less than we budgeted, but now we're spending it. On some of these that, from my position, have various levels of worthiness, but is that true if we did not spend this money? If we didn't incur these costs, that would add to our free cash for next year, which we're struggling to make sure we maintain at a level of 500,000.
It could.
Probably a yes or
But-
no
But the
answer.
problem is, you remember, right, there's different funding options to do this. You could do the reserve fund, or you could do the year-end transfer. So if some of these didn't come through as a year-end transfer, we'd be putting them through as a reserve fund. But history shows us that FinCom doesn't love spending reserve fund
Well,
once we get to
you're
May.
assuming that the only options are the reserve fund or this particular transfer. There are other options. So I'm going to answer my own question. If we didn't spend it, then it would be in free cash next year. So with that said, there are 5 of them. I'd like to suspend the Roberts rules of, motion, second, and discussion. I'd rather put the discussion first, and then have the motion and the second. So let's take them out of order, if you don't mind, which is the town accountant for $600, which essentially is reimbursing her for costs that she's already incurred. Hard to argue against that. She's entitled to that reimbursement. Glad she went to the conference.
We write conference, right, but that's where she took the exam. So she has to go,
It was the staying in the hotel and
To
the
take the
whole,
exam,
the information that you gave us behind made perfect sense. So with that, I would entertain
Whoa, hold on, just let me roll back. That's just the hotel, was that $600?
right.
So that wasn't,
no, so We,
So I mean, again, you have conference costs,
yeah,
it was lodging.
yeah, it was lodging, yep.
Was there cost for the conference, and how did that get paid?
We covered the conference, and we had budgeted for enough for the conference out of the budget, but last year we had to cut quite a few things, so we weren't able to include the lodging. The concern was that I wanted to make sure, and she was happy to pay out of her own pocket. I don't think she should have to, right? To be able to,
I just
stay
want a
on site, to be able to
clarification.
take the exam.
Again,
Yep.
people say it's words, but words matter. I mean, it's just, if
Yep.
it says, if it.
Well, we do have all the backup in it, so if someone questioned my
Ask the question,
description.
that's all.
Okay.
Is there a
Thank you.
motion to approve $600?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? I don't believe we need to do a roll call because Ben is gone, so let's do a roll call. All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Veterans benefits, 106.
So moved.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? No. All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Legal. 6 of one, half a dozen of another, because this would either come here or it would come to the reserve fund. If we didn't spend the reserve fund, then it goes to free cash. If we did, there'd be less free cash, but it'd be more here, so it's kind of a smash. What are you anticipating for the rest of the year? Because this has now been a March invoice, an April, a May, and we still have June left to go, and
Yeah, so
and this is
April,
May, but we're only on May 14th, so what are we looking for going forward?
we incurred about $4,000. We have a little bit more for legal to help finish the contracts for the collective bargaining, but the majority of that's done, so it shouldn't be too much. We have annual town meeting, and that includes the attendance of legal counsel, right? So that's, was it $280 an hour now, plus whatever travel time is, as well as travel expenses. So we have that. That usually comes out between attending town meeting and prep for reviewing the warrant and just preparing in advance and reviewing the motions, comes out to at least $1,000 is what I would anticipate for that piece. And then we have, like I said, the zoning violations. We have the hearing coming up, which is likely going to be an in-person attendance, so that's going to be probably $500, if not more. A couple other violation issues that legal is assisting us with, and another legal matter that we're hoping to wrap up in May. So I anticipate that we're going to spend another $4,000 for May's month, and then I would say June, it's probably gonna be, that should get us most of the way through the end of June, would be my guess, unless something else comes up I don't anticipate. I don't, my crystal ball's not there. If the FinCom wanted to, you could just approve, $4,000 and get us through the April invoice, but I was trying to save a trip back, knowing that the expenses are very likely to meet, if not exceed, the 10,000.
No, I think the basis of the question is we all know there's a lot going on. So,
Make a motion to approve.
yeah, didn't know whether or not it was a big number or not a number, but motion to approve's been made, second?
Second here.
Second, any discussion? No, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. Library computer replacement. Here's the concern that I have. If I'm not mistaken, this is to replace 3 computers that are 10 years old. Is that correct?
I believe that's what she has there. Someone asked about the 10 years last night.
So part of me's wondering why it took them the 10th year to realize that they were 10 years old, and why they didn't stagger the replacement one a year over a number of years. rather than this lump sum right now, number one. And number two is they have trust funds. They have one in particular, the Richard Memorial Trust Fund, that had interest this year of $7,400. It currently has a balance of $96,000. Why wouldn't they take that, this particular money out of there, which would not affect free cash, would not affect the budget? They've been good partners in terms of the town with some HVAC, but the town's also been good to them in terms of a warrant article in the Capital Improvement Planning Committee awarding them $5,000. I would think this would be a perfect candidate for them to use their own trust funds.
So Joe is actually here from the library, so she might be able to answer that question. In short, if I'm not mistaken, I believe at least one of the trust funds is only available for the purpose of the building maintenance. It's not available for other purchases, but if it's okay, Mark, Joe has unmuted herself.
Yep. Hi, thanks. Yeah, I can respond to that. The Richards Trust Fund is meant solely for building maintenance, so it can't be used for things like this. The timing, I believe, I don't know the full background, but the timing, I believe, is because the computers, they are like, I don't know, Windows 11 or something, which I think is old. I use a Mac, so I don't really know. But they no longer can, they can't, what's the word?
Support,
Hey,
run.
They can't handle the CW Mars network software. So when that gets updated, the computers, they're too old to run that new software. So it's updates to CW Mars network, and it's updates to cybersecurity that has to happen. That made Pam realize that these it won't work. It won't work with these machines.
Thank you. I asked a good question, that was a good answer, so,
Thanks.
thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes aye. The lift for the DPW. Keeping in mind that and I think I sent all of you the Capital Improvement Planning Committee report. This was a long discussed issue at Capital Improvement Planning, and it appeared in our annual Capital Improvement Planning Committee annual report to the Select Board, where we recommended it being acquired, and we recommended that it be a warrant article, and we recommended that capital depreciation funds be used for its purchase. We've not reviewed the warrant articles yet, but the draft warrant articles doesn't have this as a warrant article, conceivably for this particular reason. But I would maintain it went through the process, it went through the Capital Improvements Planning Committee, it went through its process, it did its due diligence, it appeared in its capital report, and if it were taken out of capital depreciation funds, it would not affect free cash. By taking it out here is going to do. So just wanted you to have that as a background. We acted as quickly as we could as a committee because the need for it obviously is there. Could be argued that the need voting it tonight is urgent, but the annual town meeting is only a month away, and they've been without it for 2 to 3 months already. I just think that a better way to do it would be the process that it went through. And the better use of the funds would be capital depreciation. You recall that at the special town meeting, we put $69,000 into the capital depreciation in anticipation of 10 and 12 and 15 and $18,000 asks. This is right in that wheelhouse. I would much prefer that it be taken out of capital depreciation. In accordance with the article, the committee report that was submitted to the select board. Now, I know the select board opted not to do that, but we have not voted on the warrant articles as a finance committee or a capital capital improvement planning committee either. So I'm just voicing my personal opinion, member of finance and a member of capital improvements. It went through the right process, the committee performed in the right process, and now we're taking it out of health insurance, which is really where this type of capital asset, in my opinion, shouldn't come out of. Year-end transfer ability to do so notwithstanding. So is there a motion to approve or disapprove, or is there further discussion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, so I mean, personally, it is certainly more of a capital item, and it did follow that process. But we've been talking about this lift around and around and around. What's that? Up and down, up and down. I just think it's time to get this done. It is a safety item. A lift is a safety item. And, you know, I'm ready to move on this. It probably should come out of capital, but we have the ability to do it here. I think it's time to move on it. That's all.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes no. Passes 3-1. So that concludes the year-end transfers. I think, is there any old business or new business?
All future FinCom meetings, obviously, we said 5:20,
Yep,
right?
future FinCom meetings as a start would be a joint meeting next Wednesday with the Select Board.
At 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock, yeah. And I would, keeping in mind that June 2nd is the drop dead date, is that correct? Heather?
So we'd like to have it as soon as possible, because June 16th is the,
So is there
June 2nd,
ability to
second.
have a backup meeting of February 28th, or is that flirting with Memorial,
that's
May
Wednesday.
May 28th?
You have a meeting on Tuesday. To Peter's point, we have a select board meeting scheduled on May 27th, so maybe if the select board goes to FinCom's meeting next week as a joint on Wednesday, maybe FinCom could do a joint with the select board on the following Tuesday, on the 27th, and then we might be able to deal with the warrant motion, warrant approvals and budget and everything, just in case. All for one.
At 7 or at 6? On the 27th? So let's tentatively, we're definitely going to do May 21st,
That's it.
joint meeting at 6 o'clock, tentatively May 28th, excuse me, May 27th, 7 PM, joint meeting.
And we can always, if everyone decides on the 21st that they can do 6, and it makes sense to do 6, then maybe we can adjust the 27th.
Yeah, we have a meeting earlier that evening as well, so we just got to make sure we allow ourselves a little time.
27th.
Oh, that's next week. No, it's next week. It's next week we have that. Yeah, never mind. It's next week.
Disregard.
Disregard. That's all right.
You're not doing it.
Any old business? Any new business? Public comment?
Yeah, I wanted to comment earlier, may I?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm just a little concerned about some of the discussions, and this is why I asked a question last night. Why the Finance Committee and the Select Board didn't plan on meeting together right away in anticipation of the possibility of the override failing. because there's been a couple of issues that were bantered back and forth and took up some time this evening that, with a joint meeting, we may not have had to have had. Chapter 90 funds, certainly an interesting discussion and a good discussion to have, but it's outside of the Finance Committee's purview. The fire truck, I'll ask Heather to check on this, but I don't think you can refinance a federally funded project. So I don't know that it would be eligible for refinancing. It's something that you'd have to look into. I could be incorrect on that, but I'm fairly certain I'm right. And there's some other things that, you know, the insurance, as far as the employee insurance benefits in that, there's some things that fall under the purview of the select board where a joint meeting might have been more beneficial, something that we should consider at least next year during this budget season, trying to do a little bit more of, either before and after such an event, so that we are ready to hit the ground running, because as Mr. Love so accurately pointed out, we're down to 11 business days before we have to get this done. And in the world of meetings, where you really have one a week, 11 business days is not a lot. So it's just a suggestion, Mr. Love, for the future. I'm fairly new to this, I just got elected, but I wanted to throw that idea out there.
Last night you told us you had 12 years' experience.
That was a previous one.
So as I said last night, we were not prepared to meet jointly on Tuesday night. We wanted to meet ourselves. This thing right here was not ready for a Tuesday night joint meeting. It was prepared sometime this afternoon. I hope we don't have an override failure or an override issue in the future, but in the future, we'll consider that. But right now, let's look forward, and we are meeting jointly on the 21st. So, point well made, but as I said, it was a decision I made not to do it. We had already had in the pipeline a meeting for the 14th. In my getting, forgive me for saying, but my getting a quorum for both evenings on a scale of 10 would be south of 1. So that's why I opted to do what we did. But let's look forward. We are going to, and by the way, some of these things right here were for discussion purposes only. So now you know what they are, and if they cannot be done, then having the discussion and knowing for sure that they can't has been worth the discussion. So let's look forward to a fruitful meeting on the 21st.
I do look forward to a fruitful meeting on the 21st. I'm just pointing out in the future, I want to make sure that we get together as often as possible, because I think it makes the conversation move along a little bit quicker as well.
Point made. Yes, sir.
How are you?
Good.
15 Forest Hill Road.
Can you grab a mic so that we can all hear you?
Will Recos, 15 Forest Hill Road, resident since 2017. Two things. I think there was some confusion about the employee insurance opt-out. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
That isn't designed for employees who come to Paxton and say, oh, I don't want the insurance, I'll just take the money instead. That is for existing employees. You're not paying to keep employees from taking the insurance. You're paying to have employees come off of insurance. So the incentive is for existing employees to come off the insurance. Without the incentive, if one of those employees comes back on insurance, you're actually increasing your deficit $7,000. If both of those employees come off, now you're over $30,000. So I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing I want to piggyback on the fire chief's compassionate speech was I came to this town because of the great services. That was the deciding. That was the the deciding factor. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
Can I just add one thing to what Officer Ricos just said? And that is, we also do not incentivize anybody who's under 26
Right.
to opt out as well, because there's no opportunity really for them to take it. They're already on their parents' insurance, so that was also part of it. I know that we had mentioned a couple of your employees are not on the insurance. Well, that's not an option here in town. They would not receive that benefit.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious to know, are there any town employees who don't know about this incentive?
That don't know about,
Don't know about the
The
deficit
opt-
or don't
no,
know
the
about
opt-out
health insurance?
incentive. Because maybe there are more employees out there who would opt out if they're aware of it.
Couldn't answer that.
And if you could get one or two more employees off of the town's health insurance, I mean, I would think that would be a significant savings.
The committee does make them aware. I've only been on the committee for 2 years, but they're aware, and it's a tough program.
Mike, you're gonna get yelled at.
Oh,
Where's the mic?
I can't speak up.
I heard you, but I,
Like, if you heard me, I'm good too. So to answer your question quick, yes, all the employees are made aware of it, but without having a spouse to jump over to that doesn't work in the town, the incentive's really not there, but you're absolutely correct. The people that do take the opt-out now are actually saving the town about $30,000, almost $40,000 a year. If we take that incentive from them, we're back on the hook for about that 40,000, and that's a real possibility, potentially. So it's actually a fantastic program in that portion that does allow the town to save money, and it also does help the person out a little bit. Go nuts.
One more thing. I don't know if this is possible, if you could do that. Could there be a survey put out that, what would the number be for an employee to say, hey, I would get off town insurance if this was the number?
I would defer to the committee to do that.
I don't think the question, for me, the question was just like how in line or out of line is the amount. I know that's a common program with like GIC and stuff like that, but I think their amount's a lot lower. That's, I'm just curious, like, why the amount's so much different than what you see for like the state GIC, benefits or something. I mean, maybe the program's structured a little different, I don't know. Because to be honest, if you asked me that question, I'd probably put the number at 20,000. How much to get off the benefit? I would want, I mean, I don't know if you could survey people and get a good feel for that, right?
We put this in a long time ago,
Yeah.
and I don't remember how we arrived at that particular number. It is a board of selectmen or a select board. It's under their purview because it's a town policy. But I don't remember how we arrived at the number, to be honest. It's too long.
It might be right in line with other similar things. Honestly, I don't know.
and again, to be fair, we've talked a lot about it. It is out of a 16 million change budget.
Right.
It's 15,000, 16,000 in total.
No, but you're right, but Mr. Love's point is accurate. We need to look at everything.
Yeah.
But I think the number we derived, and again, it was a long time ago, but I'm sure we did some research behind it. And we were pleased with the results when we put it in place, because it definitely netted the town savings.
Yeah.
If that's what it does, then that's good.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Seriously, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
that simple. If that's what it does, then,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything further? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Can I say something real quick?
Mark, Joe from the library.
Yep,
has her hand
go
up.
ahead, Joe.
Hi, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you for doing this difficult work, these really hard decisions and conversations. I do not envy any of you for having to do this. I just wanted to bring some information to the conversation about department budget cuts. So the library's state aid certification depends on equitable budget cuts. And we know we're not going to meet our municipal appropriations requirement. We're planning to pursue a waiver. That's the only option. And that's our expectation. But I just wanted to note that to receive a waiver, the town has to provide evidence that the library's budget was not disproportionately reduced relative to other municipal departments. And a cut to the library department is considered disproportionate when it exceeds the overall municipal budget cut by 5% or more. So I just wanted to put that information out there as you continue to crunch the numbers. And again, thank you for making this, really difficult task happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Good information, Joe. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
No, move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Mark votes aye.
Thank you.
Stand adjourned.
Thank you
Thank you
both.
all.
Heather, do you